Hi, welcome to Gunpowder, Fiction and Plot. I'm Scott.
I'm Nelle.
And today we've got a rap.
Oh, that's terrible.
Do you know what was terrible? That one arm was like in shot and the other arm was under shot.
It was not a very good dancing either.
I wasn't dancing, I was pretending to be a record where they like wind it back.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. Hi, I'm Scott.
I'm Nelle.
And we're Gunpowder, Fiction and Plot. We like to talk about bookish stuff. Nelle likes to pursue an unhealthy vendetta against Charles Dickens.
Scott doesn't really read, he listens.
Oh, that's harsh. I do read books as well as listen to audiobooks. But there is a skewing that is opposite to most readers.
Yes. So, you're going to love this video because it's going to be awesome. So hit the like button and make sure you subscribe so you get to see all of our videos.
And if you don't like this video, you're probably wrong. So hit the like button and subscribe anyway because we're better quality than this.
Thanks for watching. Sorry.
And if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. We love you.
Yeah. So, let's do the wrap. Will we start with the book that we both read, or will I start... No, I'm going to start with my books, and then we'll finish on the book we both read.
Oh, and we'll use it as a crossover
Yeah,
book.
that's how it's going to roll.
Alright, what book did you read this one?
This is The Sin Eater. It was written by Megan Campisi. I'm not going to review this hugely. It was about... the idea of sin eaters. They eat food related to your sin after you die, so instead of sort of confession, I guess. This is obviously an alternative historical reality.
So it's an historical fiction, but not quite.
But not quite. It is a bit of an intrigue, there's a bit of a plot going on. I thought it was okay.
Should I read it?
Nah, don't bother.
No, don't bother.
Like, I didn't hate it. It was a nice story, but it was just a story.
So if you've already got it, then go ahead and read it.
Yeah, but don't go out and buy it. That's what I thought of that one. That was book number 1 for the month. Yay.
Sounds captivating.
It was fine. I mean, like, you always sound more negative than you mean, but it was mediocre.
But I know you love this next one.
I did. The Empress of Salt and Fortune. I actually want to do a full review on this, so I won't crap on about it for too long. The author is Vo. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. And number 2 is on its way to be released, so I have pre-ordered that, and you should totally do that too.
It's a very tiny book.
Oh, it's so tiny, but it's just packed with goodness.
Is it even a novella?
It is. I don't know what the cutoff is. It is 120 pages, so short and sweet, but so complex. It's the story of I want to say a monk or a nun. I don't know. Neither of those are the correct words. Collecting histories, and she collects the history of a handmaiden to an empress who has recently died, and her dynasty is progressing to the next empress. So two lady rulers in a row, and you get the backstory of how the empress. The empress that has passed comes to power, as well as a glimpse into what they expect for the future under the new empress. And it's just so much more than I anticipated, and it was beautiful, and I cried, and I was so happy, and it was just so good.
On the back, there's a couple of big authors reviewing that too.
Yeah, but I'm going to get into it properly. I'm going to do a proper review on it later.
Yeah. Get rid of it over here.
We've Always Lived in the Castle was another one that I read this month. I read lots of little shorties because I was trying to catch up on my Goodreads thing. So this was only 158 pages. We've always lived in the castle, which is Shirley Jackson. This is my first Shirley Jackson book, and I really liked it.
Shirley Jackson did Hill House, which was a Netflix series.
The Haunting of Hill House.
Which is nothing like the book.
Oh, I mean, I'm looking forward to reading that one too. So this is about, what's her name? I've forgotten her name.
I was going to say Nelle, and that's the wrong book. Mary Cat is who you mean.
This is from the perspective of Mary Cat, who is a bit of an oddball. And she's talking about her family and her home life, and everything sort of dramatically changes partway through this, and it is a fascinating little character discussion, I guess.
This book has really stayed with me. I read it 12 months ago, and it really stays with you.
I'm not surprised. It's like weirdly creepy.
Yeah, it's like, it's a horror book, but it's not actually a horror book.
No, there's no... like, it's creepy, but it's not...
It's kind of like, if you like Rebecca,
scary.
you'd like this book.
I haven't read Rebecca, but I feel like that might be a good comparison. The central character, Mary Cat, is just to die for. Just complicated and completely unreliable as a central narrator, and just so quirky and
a little
weird.
girl.
Well, she's 18, so she's not that little.
Wow, that's my perception. I get the impression that she's
she does have like a weird naivety about her, which is so interesting.
I find that she's almost like 10 in my...
Yeah, for sure, but how much of that is an act?
Yeah.
I loved this. This kept me up at night trying to get through to the end. It was very, very, very good. I didn't really love the ending. I felt like it was a bit of a non-ending, which is fine. But that's, if there was a drawback to this book, that's what I would say the drawback would be. But definitely worth a read.
Yeah.
Talk about shorties. This one, I'm not going to talk about this one for long. 157 pages. Truman Capote's Breakfast at Tiffany's. I was really disappointed that I actually bothered to read this. I guess it's a satire about people I don't care about.
It's the problem when satires date, isn't it?
Very dated, and a section of society that even today's equivalent just doesn't interest me. The movie was fine, but again, this is quite true to the movie, so you are getting sort of an internal dialogue that you miss out on in the movie, but it's very Whitey McWhitison. It's not a perspective that I found enriching, and a lot of the jokes just seemed like cruel mockery rather than necessarily acerbic satire. I'm sure it was more interesting at the time, but I was really disappointed because I really enjoyed In Cold Blood. So
I think what's interesting about this book is it makes a 90 or 2-hour movie, and it's 157 pages.
Yeah, I think it's like legitimately scene for scene.
But it shows you how much other books are abridged to make it into a movie, because this one really isn't abridged a lot.
No. And then this is the last one before we get to the one we both read. My 5th book of the month, Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This is by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I wish I could speak better.
Man, that's a weird last name. I wish I could speak better.
Shut up. So this is about a coffee shop that can send you back in time. How awesome is that? There's lots of rules about how you go back in time, and it's a very structured experience. It's written in sort of little episodes, but they do blur together in a sort of consistent chronological timeline. I found it a bit sentimental. It was... I mean, it was satisfying in the sense of the outcomes for each character is exactly what you would want them to have. So that's great. But it was all very tied up in a bow and all a little bit too nicey-nicey. I'm not quite sure what the overall picture was supposed to... what point it was trying to make, whether it was just trying to tell a story that was enjoyable to read, but this I ultimately found it was a bit too sentimental for me. It was, the writing style was good enough and the story was interesting, but I definitely think it could have been pushed further.
Is this another one like the Sin Eater? If you've got it, read it. If you want to go out and buy it, don't bother.
No, I thought it was worth reading. Like it was, but as a, I'm used to sort of science fiction, science fantasy, time travel books being a bit higher concept, having a depth to them that gives you more to interpret. And this was really just a story of the lives of people who travelled in time and their outcomes surrounding that time travel. And none of it was particularly deep or interesting. It was just nice. It was all a bit Disney. I think that's a really good way of putting it.
Disney.
It's a bit Disney. And this is the one we read together. We're going to do a proper review on this one, so we'll try not to crap on too much. But this is the Diary of... The Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams.
This was our book club book, so there'll always be one book that we read together.
There will be.
Unless
I don't read the book club book.
Read the book club.
I always try.
So, I mean, for this book, we have completely different opinions, I think.
Yeah, I really liked it. You really didn't.
I mean, that's a bit harsh. I found it quite watery and lacking in substance. Which doesn't sound like I liked it, does it?
No, it doesn't. This is about the story of a woman whose life is very closely aligned to the history of the first publication of the Oxford English Dictionary. It is a historical fiction that most of the characters are actual historical figures, except for our central character, who is completely fictional.
Yeah. It also has lots of feminism in it. It has lots of the suffragettes in it, and it discusses some of the bigger, quite relevant today feminist issues around childbirth, I guess.
Lots of things, but we will get into that for our review. I really enjoyed this book. I'm glad we did it in the book club. I enjoyed our discussion in the book club, although I am more confused about it after our discussion than I was going into it.
I think we should discuss the thing that we...
No, I think we should leave that for the book review.
Well, there's something really interesting that we disagreed on, and in the book club we were split down the middle, and it's racial. And we'll have a review out of this in the next weekish, I imagine.
I hope so, because I'm not giving you anything until we review it.
Well, I gave this one 2 stars. Nelle thinks
I liked it.
That's wrong, but she doesn't give out star ratings.
No, star ratings are wrong.
Alright, so that is the crossover.
The other thing I wanted to say about my writing is I didn't actually get to my Margaret Atwood this month. I am falling behind with my Margaret Atwood timeline. I'm planning to do a catch-up at some point. I just don't know when.
August Atwood.
Potentially.
Alright, the first book I read for the month was... say words properly, was The Joy Luck Club by Anne Tan. Yeah, this was a hangover from the Asian readathon. I started reading it in... What was the Asian readathon? May. I started reading it in May. I didn't finish it, so then I finished it in June. So it's kind of like it could have been in either wrap. This basically details like second generation daughters, like the children of Chinese immigrants, and the relationships between daughters and mothers, with this sort of this disconnect that they have between, are they Chinese, are they American, and how the daughters are significantly more American than the mothers, and sort of fitting in and all of that. And it's a fine book, but it's pretty forgettable and boring, to be honest.
Yeah, well. I've got to say, I read it a number of years ago and I remember very little.
I gave it 3 stars. I think that's fairly accurate to, I think that what you said about the Sin Eater probably applies to this. If you've got it, read it. It's not bad. You'll enjoy it, but it's not going to change your life. It's not going to...
Yeah, it's just a book.
It's just a book. Then the next book I read was Fanny Burney's The Wanderer. I read this because of the Jane Austen video that we put up a few days ago, and I DNF'd this book because it was tedious. It details a woman fleeing France because Robespierre is invading. You don't know whether she's English or French, you don't know whether she's old or young, you don't know whether she's rich or poor, you don't know whether she's black or white, you just don't know anything about her. She flees, she doesn't bring a wallet, she's stripped of absolutely everything, and she has to make do with what she has, which is essentially herself, and see her rebuild her life. That's all. It sounds like a really cool idea, to be honest, but the execution wasn't there for me. This idea that she wasn't going to tell you her name so you couldn't find out who she was really, like, it became a thing, and I was like, no, this is clearly just something that we just need to accept as the reader. Like, this is something that you can't explain, and it became a thing. Anyway, I DNF'd this book because I just couldn't deal with it. The next one I read was The Lord of Chaos, book number 6 in the Wheel of Time. I just don't understand why I like these books. Everything that I don't like in books, they have long fight scenes, they have, absolutely no depth in them. The characters are all a little bit homogenous, and yet I'm still entertained and I still want to know what happens. So I gave this one 4 stars, and I don't know why. The next one I read was Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. I have a review out of this earlier in the month. This is an excellent book, is what I will give you on this. It's about a young girl who becomes the lady-in-waiting of another young girl at the request of a man called Gentleman, who is trying to rob the richer young girl with the help of the first young girl's confidence. And from there on, it takes twists and turns. We have lesbian action in it, we have murder, betrayal, theft. It's fun, it's heist, and I feel like if Dickens was a lesbian, it's what he would write. It's a good book, and I gave it 4 stars, and I'd say that was a mean 4 stars,
Yeah.
Then I have 2 DNFs this month. For people who didn't know, it was Caribathon this month. It wasn't a month-long readathon, but at some point during the month it was Caribathon. I can't remember the dates, and doesn't matter. I just read some books from the Caribbean, and one of them was V.S. Naipaul's A House for Mr. Biswa, and I didn't read this book in the end. I just wasn't really interested in it after I got going, is what I can say. I just couldn't, stuff was happening and I couldn't see why. It just felt so random. He was born with 6 fingers and it fell off. Like, well, what's the point of that? Like, I just, he was potentially just being too literal, and I didn't have the patience to wait for it all to come together because I wasn't being entertained before it gelled. Alright, the next one I read was Jill the Reckless by P.G. Wodehouse. This details Jill, who is a young lady who is ridiculously naive. Jill is well off, then she has her fortune stolen from her. She is chased by various young men. She has an uncle who's trying to restore her fortune, and it's a Wodehouse book, so we all know that this means that things are going to get a bit messy and a bit silly and all go a bit skew-if. What I really liked about this book is the character Jill is clearly the love interest of the book for multiple men who are chasing her, and she appears to be completely oblivious to all of their advances, all of their intentions, and she's just this happy-go-lucky sort of character who is not really interested in being the centre of a romance novel, and that's where Wodehouse has put her. It's like he wanted to write a romance with somebody who didn't want to be there, which is something that Wodehouse may have deliberately done.
Sounds like it.
This is just a typical Wodehouse novel. Is it his best work? No. Is it his worst work? No. Is it funny, entertaining and silly? Yes. It lacks a little bit of the intelligence that you have in Jeeves and Wooster. Not intelligence, but Jeeves and Wooster just feel so slick and well thought out, and everything sort of goes and matches. And this sort of just was a bit short of that, finely oiled machine that he gets going. But I laughed, I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. I'm a little bit mean with my star ratings, if you don't know already. I'm very happy reading books that I rate 3 stars, because 3 is the middle, it's the average. So this is an enjoyable book.
Yeah.
All right. Then I'm going to review these 2 books together, The Year of the Flood and Mad Adam, both by Margaret Atwood. They are book 2 and 3 in the Mad Adam trilogy, which may in fact be a little bit better known as the Oryx and Crake trilogy, because...
That's the name of the first book.
Yeah.
Not the last book.
That's it. But Margaret Atwood has released them as the Mad Adam trilogy, or I don't know, the publisher have decided to call it that or whatever.
Yeah.
I know you read these books. So I read Oryx and Crake, loved it. So you picked up Oryx and Crake, and then when you finished Oryx and Crake, you went bang into The Year of the Flood and Mad Adams. And I'm like, no, Oryx and Crake's finished, it's fine. I'll get to The Year of the Flood when I got to The Year of the Flood.
Yeah.
So I got to The Year of the Flood, and I wish I had just gone bang into it, because so much of this book I was playing catch up. I was not in this world, and I was really struggling to get back into this world. And Margaret Atwood doesn't give you any of the... when you read a fantasy novel and it's like, I'm going to repeat
the introduction over again.
Yeah,
like you're some kind of moron and you can't remember it from a first book.
Yeah, like I'm some sort of moron that can't remember it from the first book. And I needed a little bit of hand-holding, and Atwood didn't give me the hand-holding.
Good.
I do feel that The Year of the Flood was still the weakest of the 3 novels. It's her most experimental.
I would phrase it the opposite to that. I felt that...
You feel that's the best one, do you?
No, I just would focus on the... I don't think it was a weak novel, so I would definitely be saying Mad Adam was the strongest of the 3 rather than Year of the Flood was the weakest.
Well, certainly I gave Oryx and Crake 5, I gave Mad Adam 5, I gave The Year of the Flood 3. So that's sort of what I like. The other 2 are very strong books.
I think we're going to do a proper review on the trilogy, though.
Yeah, we will get into the whole trilogy, because it's a really interesting universe. She's created this. She's sort of taken our modern society and exaggerated some things and kept other things as they are, and she's been unreliable about how she's done that, so you never know what she's exaggerating and what's real. Issues around genetic engineering and food security and capitalism are all quite central. The abuse of women and poor people is huge in these novels, as I guess is the case in a lot of Margaret Atwood.
It's the discussion of violence that I find particularly interesting, and where that line is of when it becomes permissible to be violent, and the luxury of being moralistic.
Yeah. So what The Year of the Flood does is it sort of takes you back to the start of Oryx and Crake and introduces a couple of new characters, Toby and Wren, as well as anybody that Toby and Wren interact with, but they're the sort of protagonists of
Well, they're your
this
narrators.
novel. Yeah, it swaps between Toby chapters and Wren chapters, essentially. And so you know what's going to happen if you've read Oryx and Crake, because you know the stuff that happens in that world, and it's almost a countdown, and then the character of Wren knows Jimmy, or as he's called in the last book, Snowman the Jimmy, which I think is a much better title.
Snowman the Jimmy is so good.
Snowman the Jimmy. So, and Toby sort of joins this, I want to say cult, religious group. I don't know, is it a satire on Scientologists? Is it a satire on early Christianity? Yes.
I mean, that's not how I looked at it, but okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's more to it than that. It's not just that simple.
No, I don't think there's anything simple about this trilogy. I think that it's all multi-layered and can be viewed from multiple perspectives, but it's certainly got a lot to drill down into, and is hilarious. I laughed through the last one so much.
The last book is particularly funny, Mad Adam. Again, it takes you back to the start of the books again. But it sticks with Toby and Wren, and it introduces a character, Zeb, who's in the second book. I don't know, is he in the first book as well?
I think briefly. Anyway, it introduces the character Zeb, and a lot of it is Zeb's memories, and this is almost like the formation of a religion happening here is what I interpret it as. If you've read Oryx and Crake, this centres the children of Oryx, and they are absolutely hilarious. The children of Oryx are animals.
Oh, the children of Crake.
The Crakers.
They call them Crakers the whole time, but I thought in Oryx and Crake they called them children of Oryx. This is why I needed to read these books in a row.
Yeah.
Because all of those little things are sort of melding into one. And it's absolutely hilarious, and Margaret Atwood's able to combine like comedy with actually saying meaningful things, and like one of my favourite lines in it is, "We mustn't waggle our penis at her. She doesn't like it when we waggle our penis at her." And it's clearly hilarious.
There's so many funny things.
But actually, that is showing a base understanding of consent, and it's do you know what I mean?
Even the funnies are pointedly funny.
Yeah, and that's what I really like about Mad Adam, is that it's able to combine in a way that I really only think that Catch-22 is the only other book that I think has really done it brilliantly, combine being quite funny with being quite serious and literal. In that way, Atwood's probably a little bit more literal and a little bit less funny and silly than Catch-22.
I haven't read Catch-22, but it's gotta make me laugh a lot to beat Mad Adam.
Catch-22 is a little bit more slip on a banana custard pie in your face than Mad Adam's.
Yeah, okay.
And intentionally so. But so I thoroughly enjoyed this series. It is the best work from Margaret Atwood. The one thing I will say is the need for this to be 3 separate books rather than one whole book as a chunker. It should be one whole book. That's my...
I definitely think that everyone, other than you, everyone I know read 1 and 2 in quick succession, and then had quite a big gap between the second and the third book. And I had a month between the second and the third book. I just read them in the next TBR, but it was about a month between the two, and I wouldn't want to let it go any longer. You really, the closer together you read them, the more immersive, the better experience you're going to have. It's definitely a money grab to make them 3 separate volumes.
I mean, the thing is that they can be standalone as well. Like, you could read them standalone, but...
Totally, they're completely standalone. You could almost read them out of order and not, and not have too much of a different experience. But I do think that if you're going to read the three of them as a trilogy, all in one go, just do it.
Yeah, treat it as a big chunker.
Yeah. You'll have better experience.
And, like, I really do think that Oryx and Crake finishes nicely, and you could just walk away from the series there.
And same at the end of book 2. Like, it's very, like, each book, I think, picks it up and gives you enough explanation of the world within its own book for it to be a standalone book. But read as a trilogy, they do have more impact.
Yeah, so 3 stars for The Year of the Flood, 5 stars for Mad Adam. Mad Adam was brilliant. Then I read A Brief History of the Seven Killings by Marlon James. Now, I have a review up on this video, so I won't talk on this book, rather, so I won't talk about it a lot, but this book just blew my head off. Like...
Yes, you've been very happy you read it.
I'm very happy I've read this. And since I posted that review, I've had a couple of people say things to me which is along the lines of, I've read this other book by Marlon James and I thought the same thing, but it's about something completely else. So I suspect that Marlon James is a brilliant author that everybody should jump on. I want to say one thing that I didn't say in my book review. I use a program to listen to all of my audiobooks on my phone so I can listen to them all in one spot, and it's smart and it picks up the files, but there was some sort of labeling issue with the files that it was picking up, and I actually read this book with the files out of order, and I thought that Marlon James was doing like a weird time jumpy thing. It was broken into 3 parts, and I read the final part first, and then as I'm getting to the end of the second part, I'm like, this is sort of really linking into where the book started. And then I'm like, hang on a second, is this what's like... And then I was like, why didn't I pick up that the ending was an end? So I reread the ending, and it is an end, and it's actually quite a good ending, but
because you didn't know any of the characters, because you'd missed section number 1.
Oh, because I wasn't expecting an ending, and it just felt like... It felt, if you read Game of Thrones and suddenly they kill a character, that could be the end of the book, but it also could just be chapter 4 because it's...
Yeah.
It just, like, this book is bloody and violent and has lots of sex and drugs in it. And when stuff like that happens, you're just like, well, it's that sort of book.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, well, reading the book, and I'm like, well, that character is actually dead, But I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It's just one of the best books I have ever read. Ever. Top 5, easy, potentially best one. I'm waiting for the dust to settle to rank it.
Grand claims.
It's very, very good. And I read it for Caribathon, and what was really nice is it's Pride Month. After I read this book, I'm like, I wonder, is Marlon James really, really confident with his sexuality, or is he gay? Because there was only there could only be those 2 things. So I looked it up, and he's gay, so I got my Caribbean author, because he's Jamaican, and I got a good Pride representation in it as well. Which is good, because I've kind of picked 2 books for Pride, and I only finished one of them, so I got an extra one in. Then I read Swan's Way by Marcel Proust, and this has some of the most lovely poetic prose I have ever read. I was like, is this poetry or is this prose at the very start? And it is prose, but it is so lovely and well crafted. It's absolutely beautiful writing. Unfortunately, that's all the nice things I can say about this book. It's long-winded, it's boring, it goes nowhere. It repeats itself a bit too much.
So do not recommend.
I do not recommend it. I gave it 1 star.
Oh, that's depressing.
And I gave it 1 star, and I loved his writing. And if he has some short novels, I might try some novellas. But I actually don't know what he's done other than his In Search of Lost Time series, and Swan's Way is the first in that series, and I won't be continuing with that series. It's just, for such a long book, so little happened, and like at one point I was like, I get it, Swan likes Odette, I get it, just go to the next thing. Like, yeah, he just took so long, which a lot of writers in that era take their time to do it. I don't know whether Proust was paid by the word like people like Dickens were, but it feels like he was. And lastly, I just squeezed a very short audiobook in at the end. Caffeine, How Caffeine Created the Modern World. This is a non-fiction book about caffeine. It was interesting.
It's horrible. He's quit coffee. It's a disaster.
I have quit coffee as a result of it. It says some good things about coffee as well. It just got me to... She needs a coffee. It just got me to think about coffee a bit. It's super interesting, actually. He picks on the neoliberalism that is in the coffee industry and points out how it's exploitive of small farmers. And he basically points out that the European, like, how technology and development and all that, points out that they were going a bit like rubbish, and then they imported coffee and tea and they had all this caffeine, and suddenly Europe caught up to Asia and the Middle East and you know, had all these inventions and stuff. And while I think that that's a bit of a conspiracy theory style thing, it really is kind of a nice fact to point out. But what I can say is it's short, go for it. I gave it 3 stars, but
yeah,
it's short.
We publish videos every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. Please subscribe so that you don't miss any of them. Hit the bell so you get some nice notifications and you're like, ding.
What did you read during the month?
Yeah, tell us all the things in the comments.
And have you read any of the books we've read? Do you agree or disagree with us?
Yes, thank you for watching.
We love you. And if you got to the end of this ginormous long video, give us an apple as an emoji in the comments.
Ooh, can they do apple emojis?
I hope so. If you can't do apple, just give us some random fruit or veggie.
Bye.
Bye. Shall we go?